Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Support a Smooth Transition to Learn Ultra with Easysoft. We're really excited for you all to be here and learn from our subject matter expert today. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. This event is being recorded, and you will receive a link to that recording within about 24 hours of this webinar, so be on the lookout in your email tomorrow. The audio is streamed through your computer, so make sure your speakers are on and volume is up. There is an optional dial-in located under the menu bar on the upper left-hand corner if you do feel like you need to dial in, or maybe there's connection issues, just to have a secure audio. That would be great. We are offering optional closed captioning that should have been prompted to you when you joined the session. So if you need those services, please feel free to click on that. And as some of you are already doing, the questions can be typed into the chat, and we will be answering those as we can throughout the presentation, and we'll also carve out some time for Q&A at the end. Because if anyone's having any audio issues, you may want to refresh the session. That also tends to help. So I'd like to start off with some introductions. My name is Sarah Leonard. I'm the Senior Partner Manager here at Blackboard on the Partnerships team. I'll be serving as the moderator today, and I'm very pleased to have Groom joining us from Easysoft. He is the Channel Sales Executive for the team, and he really is the subject matter expert on all things Easysoft and Blackboard, so really pleased to have him joining us.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah.
Great. So we want to start off with a quick polling question, and bear with me while I get that set up. But we want to just get a sense of how familiar you are with Easysoft at this point. So let me type in the questions here, and I will get that started. Sorry, just me running this. Let's see. Okay, we'll start that poll. And it should pop up for you, but if not, there is a little poll icon at the very bottom as well. So feel free to take part in that, and I will kind of show the responses as they're coming in. A few folks haven't answered yet, that's okay, but it looks like we have some newbies on the call, which is great. That's what the session is for. So that is wonderful to see. We'll clear that out and go on to the next poll question. So I'd love to know, what stage of Learn Ultra are you planning to implement? There's a few different options when we talk about Learn Ultra. So let me, again, input those questions. Give me just a minute. But there's the Ultra-based navigation, which is really just the Ultra UI that you see when you go into the environment. There's dual course mode, which allows a choice between original and ultra courses, and then full ultra, meaning all navigation, all courses are in ultra. So I will go ahead and start that poll and give folks a chance to reply. Looks like so far dual course mode is winning out. I'll give a couple more seconds here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show those responses. So yes, dual course mode seems to be the most popular, with a few folks looking at doing the ultra-based nav to start with, which is a great option to get started with that. So wonderful. We will talk about that for sure. All right, and then the last poll question before we dive in, we'd love to get a sense of, kind of what's your timing framework in terms of when you might make that transition. So 1 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, or kind of a year plus out. And let me get those questions, those options in for you. Wait just a moment. Improve my copy paste skills here. Okay, there we go. We'll start that. So if you can go ahead and submit your responses. That's great. I see a few folks already about anywhere between 1 to 3 months and 3 to 6 months, some a year out, which is totally fine. Get that you need a long runway for planning. And we'll go ahead and close that out and show you the responses here. So yeah, again, almost evenly distributed, but mostly within that 3 to 6 month time frame. So that sounds great. Thank you all for sharing. We really appreciate your participation there. With that, I think we're ready to transition to the main event. So Cole, I will pass the mic over to you. We're not quite hearing you yet. Might be muted. I'll give Cole a minute to get reconnected. There we go.
Hey everybody, sorry about that. Yeah, it was loading when I tried to unmute myself, but seems all good now if everyone can hear me. Yeah, great.
Yep,
well, thank you all for taking the time to join this webinar today. Seeing a lot of familiar names under the participant list, a lot of current customers of Easysoft, some people who have recently purchased Easysoft and are currently implementing, and even a couple of those who are waiting for some of those contracts to go through in the next couple of weeks and months here. But probably the biggest thing I'll note about the audience today is that it's much larger than the crowd where I gave a very similar presentation just around this time last year. And I think that really speaks to how many more institutions are taking this time during 2021 and this major shift to online learning to go through this process and upgrade to Blackboard Ultra, whether it's Ultra-based navigation or the Ultra course view, and really using this as an opportunity to enhance and improve the way that they're going to be conducting and holding online courses and promoting online learning at their institutions going forward in the future. So it's really great to see such a large crowd here today. Really to speak to all of you, but I will say one thing that I know with large crowds and webinars is that sometimes then it makes the engagement a little bit lower because it's such a large crowd. But today, guys, I really want to encourage you to have the ability to engage in the chat, but also being able to just speak up, ask questions during the webinar while I'm presenting. I know we've got quite a few of current customers here, so if you also are interested in sharing what you're currently doing with Easysoft, I would really love if any of those kind of see the opportunity and would like to speak up. Please feel free to just use this raise hand function and raise your hand. It'll notify me. I'll be happy to stop and go through, and otherwise at the end I'll also leave a little bit of time in case if anybody's willing to share their experiences. But do feel free to kind of have it as an open environment here, and let's have a chat. And I'm always curious to hear about some of your plans with regards to Ultra, but also with regards to how you're going to be handling online learning and this hybrid learning and returning students to campus for the upcoming fall term. For this presentation today, I'm going to quickly run through some slides, give you an overview of what is Easysoft and specifically how it can be used to help with your transition to Ultra. But the majority of what I want to go through today is going to be in the live environment, showing you real examples that are pre-created by Easysoft, but also examples from our current customers and how they've used Easysoft for their transition to Ultra. So really giving you an idea of how the tool looks, feels, and how you would end up using it as an end user. But with that, I'll go ahead and kick things off. And then, like I said, please feel free to jump in and interrupt me as we're going through. And then Sarah, I'm guessing we're already recording, right?
We are, yes.
Okay, perfect. Well then, let's kick things off and let's talk about how Easysoft can help to support a smooth transition to Learn Ultra. And so just as a bit of an intro, our Easysoft institutions are global. Some of these logos on the screen here is just a small handful of some of those customers that we're currently working with in the Blackboard ecosystem. And we're very rapidly expanding to reach and be a part of more and more of Blackboard's Edtech ecosystem. And so we're also a signature partner. We've been working directly with Blackboard since 2017, but with Blackboard customers from even longer before that. The Easysoft integration into Blackboard is a building block and LTI combination, and it's only going to take around 5 minutes to make that integration, so it's very simple to get Easysoft up and running. You can also purchase Easysoft directly through Blackboard from this partnership, so always just something I'd like to mention at the beginning. But really what we want to take a look at today is the 3 pillars of driving EdTech adoption, how Easysoft can really help you to achieve that at your institution. So the first step of Easysoft is helping you to understand how is Blackboard actually being used. So Easysoft allows you to track all of the usage from inside of your Blackboard environment and provide it to you in very simple and easy to read comprehensive reports to understand the usage patterns of your users, identify areas of low adoption, and even understand that onboarding progress into Blackboard Ultra. So all of these reports are collected automatically out of the box. As soon as you install Easysoft, this data comes streaming through. There's no configuration needed from your side, and they're really simple, easy to work with. You don't need to run any SQL queries or anything like that. So simple access to real-time data of what's going on inside of Blackboard, and this also includes any of your LTI or third-party tool integrations into Blackboard, so really encompassing that entire EdTech ecosystem. But what makes this data really valuable and is going to set it apart from any of those other data sources that you might be using is that all of this data is fully actionable. So from directly inside of these reports, you can create what we call campaigns. It's a way to message and communicate with users directly inside of the Blackboard environment based on these insights that you gain from the reports, such as being able to target and message all of those instructors that have not used Rubrics before in Ultra. It's just one small example. So these messages can be placed anywhere inside of the Blackboard environment. We're going to look at dozens of examples of these messages in the live environment today, but really allowing you to provide that information at the time of need when it's the most relevant for your users to highlight some of those key changes between the Blackboard original environment and what is going to be new and what instructors and what students should be engaging with in that new Ultra environment, and also being able to really point them in the right direction and highlight those key features that you want to use. But we also have a lot of pre-made messages specifically for institutions who are moving to Ultra-based navigation or to Ultra courses. We're going to take a look at those in the live environment as well. But if we're looking at driving the adoption in maximizing the adoption of Ultra from the get-go, we also need to support users through this process, giving them that really easy access to information directly inside of Blackboard. And we're able to do this with our 24/7 contextual and role-sensitive support tab. So we know who the user is, we know where they're located in Blackboard, and we automatically present them with the most relevant help items based on those criteria. We provide this with a fully populated knowledge base from all of the help articles from help.blackboard.com, but it's also fully customizable. So you're going to be able to add your own institution-specific resources and resources to third-party tool support as well. And then you'll notice down on the bottom the email, call, and chat functions. So users will also be able to directly escalate their support requests from inside of Blackboard using the Easysoft support tab, and this will integrate with your current support workflows. So whether if you're using Blackboard Student Services or you have in-house help desk, we're going to be able to dynamically route those support requests. So we can separate student and instructor support requests. We can separate the support requests between different departments. So really getting the user directly to the most relevant areas inside of your support infrastructure as quickly as possible. Yeah.
Hey Cole,
So,
there's a question in the chat. How does the institutional content work if we have multiple institutions? Can it be split up?
So Easysoft pulls on the institutional hierarchy and the nodes inside of Blackboard. So for example, Harrison, I noticed, was on this call. He's from the Oklahoma Source Consortium, which is 5 schools on the same instance of Blackboard Learn. And they just recently purchased Easysoft. They will be able to do institution-specific messaging using the institutional hierarchy nodes that they have set up inside of Blackboard. So really allowing you to drill down and target specific user groups with this messaging and the support from Easysoft.
Perfect. That question was from Harrison, so you got it.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yep. Thank you.
Perfect. And so what we want to talk about today is how specifically your institution can effectively manage change. And there's quite a lot of models out there around how institutions can manage change effectively, and organizations as well. But here at Easysoft, we have chosen this ADKAR model. And so what is ADKAR? It's a model of making effective change in an organization that relies on 5 basic principles, going in a chronological order. So the first step is creating awareness, and then afterwards creating the desire of your users or the people inside your organization to want to make this change, but then afterwards giving them the knowledge that they need to be able to effectively make this change and begin working with new platforms. And then afterwards, after the knowledge, also giving them the ability. So this is going to be along the lines of training and facilitating this new tool adoption with regards to Ultra, and then afterwards reinforcing these different concepts and really driving home what's important, how people should be using the new platform, and really emphasizing what are those key measures and landmarks from your institution. But so how does this apply to transition to Blackboard Ultra? Well, here we've built a little bit of a timeline kind of showing how these different principles can be built into the different steps of your transition to Blackboard Ultra. And here across the middle you see the phases of going to Ultra, so starting in original to Ultra Base Nav, hybrid environment, so this is the dual course mode, and then of course the end goal of being fully on all Ultra courses. So here the beginning stages in the original and the Ultra Base navigation environment is going to be creating that awareness. So letting your users know that this change is coming, how it's going to be beneficial to them, and letting them know when it's going to take place so nobody's surprised by this change. But then once that transition is made, we want to begin to build the knowledge and the desire of your users to begin adopting this new platform, understanding how it works, and really integrating it into the way that they're teaching in the classroom or how they're teaching online. So here you see this is really where the messaging and the support side of Easysoft becomes very valuable, allowing you to communicate directly inside of Blackboard and provide additional support materials to help them build this knowledge, but also the desire to let these users know what are the most powerful features of Ultra and how they can be integrated into their courses. The reports will also play a big part during this stage, being able to measure the onboarding progress and understanding where your faculty and where your students are through this process of making that transition to Ultra, and then being able to identify some of those areas that you might want to really emphasize and bring up again. So this is really a continuous process of going back and trying to build this knowledge and desire, and then of course the ability. So this is something that Easysoft is also going to be able to help out with through some of the messaging that we're going to look at today, but of course this is also going to be in combination with any of those training opportunities that many of you might have already gone through or are planning for, to help your instructors understand Ultra and begin working with it as easily as possible. And then of course the last step, being able to reinforce and really enhance the way that Ultra is being used by your faculty and students, and that's something that is always going to be a continuous process. We're never going to be able to reach 100% of our faculty. If you look at the technology adoption curve, where you kind of have these different groups of users within an organization of the early adopters, the early majority, the late majority, and then the laggards. So we're never going to reach everybody, but our goal is to reach as many people as possible and get as many people on board and move them into these early adopters and really drive this technological institutional change at your institution. But from here, what I want to do is look at some specific examples of how our customers have used Easysoft to make their transition to Blackboard Ultra. And our first example today is actually from the University of Miami. So they're currently in the process of moving to Blackboard Ultra. They haven't gone all the way through this process yet. And this is just an example of one of these awareness messages that they have put out there, letting people know that Ultra is being turned on. It's going to result in some downtime of Blackboard, but here also linking them directly to their page to let people know why they're moving to Ultra, and really making that clear to the faculty and helping them understand how this is going to benefit them in the long run with regards to online student engagement and being able to teach online. And then here also giving them the possibility to be notified when Blackboard is back online. So really making sure that nobody is surprised through this change, which is going to be happening. And then also through our reports is a great way to prepare for your transition specifically to Ultra courses, because as we know, there's some tools that are no longer going to be available inside of Blackboard Ultra. And this is something that Easysoft, we've actually segmented and created our own reporting template to give you the full overview of these tools that are no longer going to be available in Ultra or that are changing in Ultra, and giving you a better idea of how these are currently being used in the original course experience, to understand what areas you might need to focus on and help those specific groups of instructors make that transition to the new Ultra courses, to help them identify the different alternatives. So directly from these reports, as we'll see in the live environment, for each of these individual items here, such as retention center, survey, tasks, you're going to be able to download a CSV list of all of those users who either have or have not used these specific tools. So what's going to be beneficial for us in this case is looking at the instructors who have used tasks, for example, understanding who they are and being able to identify them. But inside of Easysoft, we also have this campaigns feature, which allows you to take action on this data with our in-application messaging. So from these reports, we're also going to be able to identify and segment these specific groups of instructors who, for example, are using Retention Center. And then inside of Blackboard, being able to message them about these upcoming changes. So being very specific with who we're targeting these messages towards, and making them only towards those relevant user groups, which in this case is those instructors that are already using Retention Center. And here you see a message example inside of an original course, notifying an instructor that Retention Center is going to change in Ultra. So here you see we're letting them know it's going to be discontinued, but also letting them know how they can find alternatives to be able to achieve many of those same things that they were doing with Retention Center, which in this case is going to be through some of those functionalities that have been added to the activity stream. So again, this is part of creating the awareness, but also helping to build that desire to use those new tools inside of Blackboard Ultra. And then, of course, once that upgrade is made, we want to message that user about these Retention Center alternatives. So reminding them and showing them exactly how they're going to be able to go through and find some of those functionalities that were previously in Retention Center inside of the new Blackboard Ultra environment. So really helping to ensure the maximum amount of people continuing to build on and continue the ways that they're using Blackboard in their previous courses. Yeah, I want to pause for a second. Does anyone have any questions specifically about these reports and the identifying and this change management messaging towards specific groups of users?
Not seeing anything in the chat, but again, feel free to post as they come up.
Sure, no worries. Just wanted to let anybody ask anything if they'd like to, but we can go ahead and move on. And so the reports and the messaging is not the only piece of Easysoft that's going to help with your transition to Ultra. There's also the help desk. And so we mentioned before, I mentioned before about how users are going to be able to escalate their support requests from inside of Easysoft. And one thing that we also include when the user escalates their support request is what we call a smart escalation email, which you can see the screenshot of over here on the right. And this includes all of the user's information that we are able to pick up from Blackboard, such as what operating system that they're on, what browser that they're using, and even a link to exactly where the user triggered this support request from. So this can be really helpful to actually reduce the time to resolution on many of your support requests. So a lot of times a student can reach out and say, I can't take my test, but they don't tell you what test that they're trying to take. They don't tell you what course that they're in. It makes it very difficult to solve that request for them. And of course, when you're making a major change such as upgrading to Blackboard Ultra, people are going to reach out and they're going to have questions about how to use specific functionalities and how to do different things. So first of all, the in-application support tab is going to help give the users that information that they need to deflect, hopefully some of those more common support requests, but also for those support requests that do get escalated, you're going to have that information that you need to solve those responses much quicker and be able to manage any increases or influxes in additional support requests that you receive. So we'll look at the real support tab inside of the live environment, but this is a great thing to know about of what type of information we provide on the back end. Yeah, and going back to the reports, on the original slide, I mentioned that we track LTI and third-party tool usage. This is actually a screenshot here from one of our customers at CSU Chico of some of the LTI and third-party tool integrations that they are tracking inside of their Blackboard environment. So you see a really comprehensive list here of the different learning technologies that they have integrated into Blackboard, and being able to provide you with a full overview of how these tools are being used and how many people are actually using them. So a lot of our customers are able to use this data to conduct ROI evaluations and really understand what is the real cost per user of some of these specific tools, being able to identify these different areas of low adoption and then run some messaging to campaigns to specifically try to increase the usage of these tools. So really encompassing your full EdTech ecosystem with these different reports and insights. But of course, from these reports, one of the biggest things that we want to do is identify these trends of low adoption. So having this full comprehensive oversight into what's actually going on inside of Blackboard, being able to drill down, see exactly how specific tools are being used, and then having the campaigns and the messaging available to take action on this data. So from these areas of low adoption that we identify, we can run this messaging inside of Blackboard, and specifically with regards to Ultra and new Ultra upgrades, being able to provide some asynchronous in-application training can be really valuable to reach a large audience with that information that they're going to be able to use at a time when it's most relevant for them while they're inside of their course, while they're going through. A really popular example of this has been for the gradebook, because the gradebook requires a lot of times some customization to align this gradebook with your institution-specific grading scales, and it's also one of those tools that has been changed significantly in Ultra and has a lot of new features for these instructors to take advantage of. And so here with this messaging and these videos that we can provide and additional support in the support tab, we're going to be able to give them this information and training directly inside of the platform without that user maybe needing or being able to attend some of those other training sessions. So just allowing you to reach a larger audience at a time that might be more convenient and easier for them to actually only be 1 or 2 clicks away from taking action on this information. I know for many of you here, you know, one of the biggest issues of the faculty training workshops is that the people come and they're engaged during the session, but the hardest part is getting them to actually implement what they learned during that training session into their course. So this is a really also part of the ways of reinforcement, so that final step of the ADKAR model of being able to remind users and highlight those key areas and those key actions that you'd like them to complete inside of Blackboard to really set up their online learning environment in an effective way for their students.
Hey, Cole, before you move on to the next slide, just another question in the chat related to institutional hierarchy, going back to that. So is that a requirement to be set up first in order to use Easysoft? Or I guess it would only really apply if you had multiple instances within one institution, right? Or one organization?
No, so the The institutional hierarchy is not a requirement to be able to use Easysoft. It's just one of the ways and one of the things that Easysoft picks up on in Blackboard that's going to allow you to segment and target some of this messaging. So a lot of times we see institutions who set up the institutional hierarchy to reflect the different campuses inside of their institution, or to reflect the different departments, so such as the Faculty of Law versus the Faculty of Economics. And this will allow you to segment the reports, so to be able to view the data of those departmental specific usage, and also segment the messaging. But we're also able to if you don't have the institutional hierarchy, we have the ability to upload custom lists of users. So if you can pull from the SIS all third-year chemistry students, we can upload that list into Easysoft and send a targeted message only to those third-year chemistry students. So it allows you to be very specific and target basically any group of users at your institution, and that's whether if they are programmed into the institutional hierarchy or the SIS or really anywhere. If you're able to pull that into an Excel list, we're going to be able to target those users. But for the institutional hierarchy, we just pick it up automatically, and it's something that's already stored in Easysoft. So it's a little bit, let's say, more of an automated process than the other way around.
Okay, great. That's a helpful clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, being able to target the messages based on the tool usage, as we've seen from the campaigns, and we'll look at some real examples here in a minute in the live environment. Yeah, and last but not least, for the slides today, before I jump into the live environment, is a look at how you can use these reports to measure the onboarding progress of your users into Ultra courses from Original. So this is part of this migration to Ultra dashboard that we've built, being able to compare the usage of course tools between courses in Ultra and courses in Original to really understand how many instructors have moved over to those Ultra courses, what tools are they using, how does that compare to the usage of those same tools inside of Original courses, to really provide you some better insights into where you're at in that onboarding process and help you to identify some of those different key areas that you'll want to focus on for those reinforcement and training stages. So with that, I'm going to jump out into the live environment, and we're going to look at some real examples of how our customers have been using Easysoft. So this is really where it gets more interesting. Thank you for bearing with me for that original just presentation piece. But now we're going to take all of that knowledge and see how our customers have been really applying it and using it inside of Blackboard. And as soon as we log in, the first thing that we notice is our first example of an Easysoft message. So there's a couple different styles of Easysoft message. The first one that we're looking at today is a pop-up message, and it's actually welcoming a new user into Blackboard. So actually welcoming them to the new Blackboard. You can imagine this as one of the first messages when you first turned on Ultra courses or Ultra based navigation. So letting them know that the environment has changed and providing them with a short video as an introduction to this new environment. Here I've pulled the video from Blackboard, but we also see a lot of our customers creating these institution-specific messages with videos, institution-specific videos to highlight some of those key areas inside of Ultra and those key changes from their old environment that they want users to be exploring and engaging with from the get-go. So really allowing you to provide that information when it's the most relevant for them. And so as I mentioned already, we're going to be able to segment and target these messages towards different groups of users inside your institution. We'll have a different message for students as we do for instructors. The message that we're looking at now is an example for students. We'd be also to send a different message to all of those instructors. Now you're going to be able to place these messages anywhere inside of the Blackboard environment. And here you can actually notice one of our hint messages. So actually pointing directly to a specific page element inside of Blackboard. And in this case, this is a message that would be targeted towards instructors, asking them to add their due dates to the calendar. This is going to be really important so that students are going to see their upcoming assignments and deadlines and due dates here in the activity stream, which is one of those really big value add tools and things that are new to Blackboard Ultra is how central the activity stream is. So we want to promote that to instructors to ensure that all of that information is available in the calendar so that students are going to engage more with this activity stream and use it as a way to keep track of everything going on in their courses. So being able to use these hint messages to point out and highlight those key areas inside of Blackboard that you want users to be engaging with and using. But then, okay, I'm an instructor and I click through to the calendar, and now we'll see the third style of Easysoft message here. This is a sys tray message. So it sits on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, providing some more general information about this page. This message is a part of a pre-made campaign that our content team from Easysoft has put together. So these messages, these sys tray messages, are available on each of the different pages inside of the Ultra base navigation layer to provide some information about what tools are available on this page and how a user can begin working with these new areas in Ultra. So this is pre-made. You're going to help you to really get started and use Easysoft as quickly as possible after your implementation. But down here, you'll notice some links as a part of this message. And when I click on these links, it actually opens up directly into the Easysoft Support Center. So this is how we're able to provide those users with the information that they need without having to leave Blackboard, without having to search for anything, with just 1 or 2 clicks, having really easy access to additional support information to really help and facilitate that adoption of new Ultra features. So making that access to information really easy. Here, if we go to the organizations page, we'll see another example of one of these messages with the link to the support tab. But these Easysoft, the Easysoft support tab is available everywhere inside of Blackboard. So we can trigger it directly from this question mark down here on the bottom of the page. We open up Easysoft support, and here is where Easysoft picks up who the user is and where they're located inside of Blackboard. And you see that it automatically presents me with those most relevant help items. Since I'm an instructor on the organizations page, you see it automatically takes me to these help items about using organizations. So again, just giving that really easy access to support, and the user doesn't need to search for anything. Within just 1 or 2 clicks, they're going to have access to that information that they need. And then, as I mentioned, you're also going to be able to customize this knowledge base, so adding any of your own institution-specific resources or even third-party tool resources to this knowledge base. So here I have an example about Panopto, but this same principle applies for any of those other LTI or third-party tools that you might be using and that you want to promote using this messaging. So here's a message for instructors, reminding them to add Panopto recordings to their course, and then here the link to that support document, specifically with some support help on using Panopto inside of Blackboard. And then down at the bottom, always having this availability to actually escalate their support requests. Let's say if you only have support of phone support available from 9 till 5. After 5 p.m., this call button is no longer going to be available. So really dynamic, and it's going to integrate with the current way that you're handling support. Easysoft is not a ticketing system. We will integrate with your existing ticketing system and stream that smart escalation information that we were taking a look at in the slide presentation. All of that user information, the OS, the link to where they were, will stream that into your existing ticketing system, and then the user will have this reference number, which also relates to that information. And so before we move on to a Ultra course, does anyone have any questions about some of those original messaging examples or the support tab so far?
A couple questions in the chat. One kind of more broadly, does Easysoft work on mobile devices?
So Easysoft does work on mobile devices if Blackboard is open through the web browser, but it is not available inside of the Blackboard app.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying. And then another question, can we have a pop-up that lets users know they have an unread message in a current course?
That one is a little bit more complicated because the messaging is more based on the roles of the users or the specific user group that you have selected as far as the audience for the message. So we're not picking up on whether if that user has unread messages or not. Generally what we would do in that case is we could send a message to remind users to be checking for their messages, but it will not be dependent on if that user does or does not have unread messages. So we usually try to make it a little bit more general and then either send that to all students or all of the students in a specific department where it's important that they're checking their messages.
Right, that makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one thing that I had also talked about during the slides is how these messages can be used to deflect some of those most common support requests coming into your help desk. A really popular example of this at the start of the term is students not seeing their courses on the My Courses page. Many different reasons for this. Sometimes it's the instructor that didn't publish it or the course wasn't made available. So here we can actually let the students know to reach out directly to their instructor rather than to the help desk, because in most cases it's not the help desk that's going to be able to make that course available for the student. It's the instructor that needs to go and make it available. So being able to deflect some of those most common support requests by communicating proactively, providing that information before the user knows that they need it. But we can also combat this issue from the opposite side, towards instructors. So reminding them to publish their course. We can send this message 2 weeks, a week before the first day of classes, but having this message directly inside of Blackboard to remind them that they need to publish their courses, but also giving them a short walkthrough and a link to some support documentation on how they can actually go ahead and make this course available to their students. So using this proactive communication, our customers have been able to reduce the number of support requests that they received on these targeted issues by around 50%. So just a really great example of how that communication at the right place and at the right time can go a long way to changing that user behavior. Yeah, and if we just jump into an Ultra course here, one thing that has been really valuable for our customers turning on Ultra courses is the ability to deliver surveys to instructors and students through Easysoft to get some more feedback on how the environment is currently being used and how people are feeling about it so far. So this is an example of a survey that could be presented to students. This is actually a Google form that's been embedded inside of this Easysoft message. We can also embed Qualtrics surveys, really any tool or widget that you can generate an iframe for. We're going to be able to host that inside of this Easysoft message window. And by using these Easysoft messages to deliver these surveys, our customers are seeing a lot higher engagement and much higher response rates on these specific surveys because it's directly inside of their Blackboard course. You see, it's very simple. It's just a couple of clicks to go ahead and submit this. And of course, I know as many of you know on this call, it's very difficult to get students to always read their email. Information is very easily ignored or overlooked, especially with more emails going out than ever before, needing to constantly communicate with students, and they can get overwhelmed by this communication. So through Easysoft, you're going to be able to take advantage of that really valuable real estate that is Blackboard, and especially over this last year, having such a large number of instructors and students engaging with Blackboard more than they ever had in the years previous. We know that Blackboard is now a place that students and instructors are entering on a weekly, sometimes, and in many cases, even a daily basis. So being able to use this real estate in this area to communicate with users and provide that additional information has been really, really effective for our customers. But then again, when the user enters into the Ultra course, we can also use this pop-up feature again to actually welcome them specifically to the Ultra course view. So this can be really helpful for any of the institutions that are currently in dual course view, for any new instructors that create Ultra courses, being able to trigger these messages, but also for those just turning on Ultra courses for the first time. So being able to provide a list to either if it's how to copy their course from original to an Ultra course, or whether it is a brief introduction video of how to use Blackboard Ultra course view, just providing that information, welcoming them into the new the new course view and providing some of that guidance. But then, of course, you're going to have the ability to provide some additional guidance through the Easysoft hint messages. So here you see this is a message tied directly to where a user would actually create a new piece of content and linking them directly to some additional support materials from inside of Blackboard. So using these messages to highlight those key features and walk users through some of these different functionalities, but also being able to use these messages to actually inform users about any of these updates or changes that are being made inside of Blackboard. So many of you, I believe, are already on SaaS, so you're already experiencing this continuous delivery model from Blackboard, which is great because you always have the latest and greatest version of Blackboard at all times. But if users are not aware of these changes or any new features that have been added, it's very unlikely that they're going to go and take advantage of those tools. So through this Easysoft messaging, we're going to be able to communicate and inform users about any of these updates or changes, and especially with Ultra Course View, because Blackboard development team is constantly improving the Ultra Course View. They're constantly adding new functionalities and building out this entire area. So we want to be able to inform users about that to ensure that they're taking advantage of the full power that is provided by the Ultra Course. Yeah, and here, this example is about gallery view, something that was very recently released. This is actually a pre-made campaign message for these updates. So Easysoft creates these messages for each of the SaaS releases from Blackboard. So on the day of the update, you'll be able to open and see the content that we've created, make any changes that you'd like, and then make it live to inform users in real time. Yeah, and with that, I actually want to jump back into the Easysoft reports. I'll need to log in here. Does anyone have any questions just while I'm transitioning here, or anything in the chat that I was missing, Sarah?
I think you covered everything, and Agenda has been posting a few resources as well that folks can take a look at, so that's great.
Perfect, great. I'm just setting up these reports here to give us a look at some better data. So we're having some sync issues with this environment. So what I've done is I've just switched over to the Easysoft dashboard. And I'm specifically under the Insights tab looking at the tool adoption report, because this tool adoption report is what really gives you that overview of how is Blackboard being used. Right now, we're looking at instructor usage, but we could also take a look at student usage. Through this role category here, we'll be able to segment this usage data by any of those institutional hierarchies, nodes, or roles that you're using inside of Blackboard, and then a couple different presentation types that you'll be able to use with these graphs. But down here, we see the major tool categories where we're able to drill down and see what tools are being used inside of Blackboard. And again, all of this data is being streamed automatically. You'll see these reports exactly as we're looking at them here today. And being really easily able to drill down and understand this information. But you see here, when I drill down into Rubrics, I'm going to be able to see exactly how this tool is being used. So giving you some really valuable insights into the usage patterns of your users, and most importantly, being able to identify these different areas of low adoption inside of Blackboard using these reports. So all of the native Blackboard functionality is being picked up automatically by Easysoft, and almost 100 different LTI tools. And then we can also customize these reports to build different reporting templates, build LTI dashboards, and include any of those other LTI tools that are not in those 100 that we pick up automatically. Yeah, and so one thing that I talked a lot about was how these reports are fully actionable. So let's take Rubrics as our example here, and let's say we want to increase the instructor adoption of Rubrics. We're looking at instructor usage right now. When I click on these two arrows, you'll notice this window pops up where I'm able to either download the CSV file to either see the active or non-active users of Rubrics, but I can also create a campaign, which is going to allow you to segment and target all of these instructors that have not been using Rubrics inside of Blackboard. And so allowing you to create some messages and target this specific group of users, try and increase the adoption of this specific tool. So if we jump back into Blackboard, an example of a message that could be a part of this campaign to increase the usage of rubrics is as follows. So let's say I'm an instructor, I'm going through this process, I'm setting up a new assignment inside of my course, and we open up to this new assignment and I go through, I'm setting it up. And when I get to the area where I'm able to add a rubric to this course, we'll see the user is actually prompted with this hint message and asking them, hey, do you want to save time grading? So letting the instructor know that if they add a rubric to this assignment, they're going to be able to grade using the Blackboard app, make this process a little bit faster. And here you see some links down below. The first link is actually letting the user know about the importance of rubrics. So through these messages, one thing you might have already noticed, but one thing that our team really strongly focuses on is that we don't want to use these messages to say, hey, we see you're not doing this. Hey, use this tool. No, we want to show the instructor, we want to show the student the value that is added from them working with a new tool inside of Blackboard. So for example, letting the instructor know they can save time grading, but here also communicating to them why rubrics are important and how it's also beneficial to their students. So providing informative feedback and allowing you to evaluate more consistently. And then as well as here, we included a video to watch a tutorial about creating rubrics because we specifically targeted all of these instructors that have not used rubrics before. So being able to really easily provide them with that information directly from this message inside of Blackboard. And even this one individual message is very in line with that ADKAR model that we previously discussed. So I had showed you on a timeline how that ADKAR model was used throughout the whole transition process, but these principles can actually be applied to each individual message that you're creating through Easysoft inside of Blackboard, that awareness, the desire, the knowledge, the ability, and the reinforcement. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about these actionable campaigns and using those reports to create and launch messages inside of Blackboard?
Cole, there is a question about setup time. So in terms of how much setup and customization is involved initially when integrating with Easysoft, and what is included in kind of that out-of-the-box content with minimal customization.
Yep, absolutely. So here I'll just open up a couple pages here. Back on the slides, we see we put a lot of customers through a fast track implementation to get them up and running with Easysoft as quickly as possible. Luckily, because so much of the reports they collect automatically as soon as you install our plugin, we begin tracking all of that data. All you have to do is complete the installation. Then with the support tab, it's a fully populated knowledge base with all of the Blackboard help items. A lot of times we will encourage institutions to go live with that out-of-the-box support option as quickly as possible. And then over the coming weeks and months, as you are available, because I know that all of you from the teaching and learning side, IT, Blackboard admins are all very busy. I'm trying to support this online hybrid learning format. So as you have the time, being able to build out and customize that knowledge base even more. And then for the messaging and the pre-made campaigns, here I've just opened up and I jumped over to our dashboard. We're under the campaigns file, and I've jumped over to our templates. This is a look at all of the different templates that we have available pre-made out of the box. So you'll see these different ones for each of the SaaS releases. Here we have a lot of campaigns around Blackboard Ally. We have them for Collaborate Ultra Gallery View. We have them for Respondus Lockdown Browser. We have them for Kaltura. And we're constantly expanding and growing the campaigns that we're offering, the partnerships that we have with other third-party tool vendors. We have campaigns for best practices to engage virtual learning. So we have a content team of Edtech experts that actually help us to develop and create these campaigns. We see we have a campaign about using the Grade Center effectively. So a lot to choose from here. And if you go to the Easysoft universe, We also have a really strong community of customers who share all of their different messaging and support use cases through this Easysoft universe. And this is a great place for any of you to go and brainstorm and see what other institutions are using Easysoft for, and especially with regards to transitioning to Blackboard Ultra. So let's call it a generalization. It's going to be different for every institution, but it is possible to be fully up and running with Easysoft. I would say a really safe ballpark is between a month and a half. During COVID, we had implemented customers and they had gone live in production within just 1 to 2 weeks. So it really depends on your availability and your need and willingness to get it set up. Yeah, and whoever raised their hand, please feel free to jump in.
Hi there. Thank you for the excellent overview. Just a quick question. With regards to escalations and a client, a student or faculty escalating, does that, I thought I heard you say it does not get pushed to a ticketing system. So where does it
does get pushed to the ticketing system. So we'll integrate with whatever ticketing system you're currently using, and then when the user escalates the support request from inside of Blackboard, that will generate a ticket inside of your existing ticketing system.
Okay, so then somebody will either get back to them, will be notified to get back to them. Okay. Great.
Yep, exactly. So it'll pair up with exactly the way that you're currently doing and handling all of your user support.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for the question, Dawn. There are a couple more in the chat here in terms of what would be the best timing to implement Easysoft for an Ultra deployment. I know you were mentioning it could be really great for kind of initial transitioning, like kind of giving people a heads up of what's to come, and then actually have those messages once the transition does take place. So is there a recommended timing before the Ultra deployment?
I mean, best case scenario, it would be great to have Easysoft live before you make any of those transition steps to Blackboard Ultra, because you're going to be able to use the data to analyze the usage patterns on original courses, use that information to shape your strategy and how you want to onboard users into Ultra and Ultra courses. But I would also say that there's no time too late to start using Easysoft, because here what our main goal is where we want to drive and increase the utilization of Blackboard Ultra at your institution. And there's always going to be areas that can be improved with regards to using Blackboard and Blackboard Ultra, even from those of you still on original courses and using Blackboard Original. Adoption was still a really key focal point of something that institutions needed to focus on and needed to have strategies to ensure that the platform is being used correctly. A lot of research showing that the majority of LMS usage is as a content repository rather than that fully encompassing learning tool. So even if you're already on full Ultra courses, you've made that transition with Easysoft. Our goal is to help you push your users and change that usage behavior from using Blackboard as a content repository, but turning it into that fully encompassing online learning tool and taking advantage of all the power that it provides. So of course, as early as possible is great, but there's a lot of long-term standing benefits no matter where you are in that process.
That's great. Yep, we answered 2 questions in one, so perfect.
Great. Anything else left in the chat, or anything else anybody wants to mention? I know we've only got a couple minutes left. I've got examples I could show for hours and hours of these messaging examples. So if you'd be interested in seeing more of these examples, please feel free to send me an email or reach out to your Blackboard account executive. I know many of you on the call already have done some custom demos with me, and you see I will have me and my team will work together to really set that up for examples that are specific to your institution and how this can be used at your school. But yeah, any last questions or anything anyone wants to dive into a little bit deeper?
not seeing anything else, just lots of thank yous. So I'll echo that. Thank you for all this great information. I did just want to share this last slide here that shows you a few websites and emails that you can use as a follow-up if you want to dig into more things about Easysoft, easysoft.com, request a demo, a personalized demo at easysoft.com/demo, and then feel free to also contact your Blackboard account executive or email blackboard@easysoft.com for follow-up. Oh, thanks, Ayanda.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for your time, and to Cole for all the great information. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, and I'll stick around for a couple more minutes if anybody wants to hang on, ask any last questions, discuss something specific to your institution. Please feel free to hang back. I'll be here for a couple minutes and be happy to have a chat.
Perfect. I'm going to stop the recording, but yes, feel free to hang on.